Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day two of the 2023 budget for the Township of Allen McCalderman. I'll call this meeting to order at 9:30. And I think we'll do a roll call too right off the bat because we have one member who's not here yet, but I understand he's coming. So Deputy Mayor Latchford. Oh, Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor. I apologize. Deputy Mayor Silver. Thank you.
Oh, if you could all please have your microphone as well. And then
Councillor Booth,
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor O'Neill,
I'm here for now, but I will be leaving the meeting at about 10:40 and switching to my phone as I have an appointment I cannot rearrange.
thank you. Territorial land acknowledgement. Before our meeting gets underway, I would like to formally recognize the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Allen McCalderman is located on the Mississaugan Ashaninpik territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississaugan Ashaninpik. The Township of Allen McCalderman respectively acknowledges that the Mississaugan Nation are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Item 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Deputy Mayor Stover.
Mayor Logal, I would like to pass Madam Clerk declaration pecuniary interest. It has to do with agenda item 5.4 and the reason being pending litigation with the library board. Mayor Logal, I will stay at the table, but I will not contribute in any way to this budget.
Thank you. Any others to declare? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda as circulated. Be it resolved that the agenda of the budget session of Wednesday, February 1st, 2023 be approved as circulated. Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Stover, Councillor Booth. Any questions? Go ahead, Pat.
There were some items that we were unable to achieve yesterday, so they'll have to be added onto this agenda.
Okay.
And then you're going to announce also the meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we'll do that. First of all, the meeting tomorrow will start at, we aren't going to get finished all of the budget today. We recognize that. So we're going to add on a meeting tomorrow that'll start at 9 and be done at 12. And that'll give us staff and council a half an hour to prepare for the regular council meeting tomorrow. Okay. Did I get an all in favor?
No, you need to.
All in favor of the agenda with as changed? That's carried. And I believe, are we going to the heritage first then? I'm going to let you take us there.
Through you, Mayor. I believe we were going to start with animal control and livestock this morning. That was left over from the yesterday's agenda.
Okay.
What section is that, Nicole?
It is page 1259 and it's section 15 of your binder.
Thank you.
So this, the animal control and livestock budget really only has $172 difference from last year's budget. So there is no levy impact here. What I want to bring to your attention is that although we only showed selling $1,600 in dog tags for 2021, we have kept the budget line item the same as we expect to sell more with changing over to DocuPet. There has been estimates put in based on 10 calls per year for livestock claims, and that's when we have our evaluator go out. So those are in there. We've also budgeted for the $31,000 animal services agreement along with the document pet costs in the joint animal control services line. So really, the only real impact here is the fact that we do not recover 100% of any administrative costs. We still only receive the $50 per call from the ministry, but I think something was being proposed by other municipalities to the province to get an increase there, because it truly doesn't cover those costs, especially when we are paying our evaluator $80 plus mileage, and that doesn't take into account any administrative costs within the township. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. If anybody has any questions, Daryl is also online. If there's any questions with regards to how we administer this, he will no longer be going out to the claims. As you know, we now have a evaluator in place for 2023, but he is online if there's any questions in that regard.
Go ahead, Councilor O'Neill.
Not so much a question, but information for the public. There's an initial fee for the setup of DocuPet, and that will not be an ongoing, or the full amount isn't ongoing anyway. That's correct.
Any other questions? I have one for Daryl. We do have a dog licensing fee that is charged, and I'm not sure, is that $20 or does anybody know that?
Is,
That's not.
Go ahead, Daryl.
Go ahead, Daryl.
I just was through your mayor, was that for a kennel license or dog licensing fee? Sorry.
I have for dog licensing fee.
Okay, I'm gonna pass that one to Pat.
So I
Okay.
believe it is $20. We do, with the Township of Hamilton and also Port Hope. We are part of this DocuPet, and one of the issues that we're going to bring up is whether or not those fees need to be increased. So it'd have to be the same fee for the 3 municipalities, but we'll be arranging a meeting and discussing that.
And I guess my other question, maybe it's more related to Daryl, is the bylaw, is there a fee if people are fined for not having a dog license?
Yeah, through the bylaw, through your worship, the bylaw, but it's looked after also by our Animal Humane Society. So I would have to check back and do some research on that if they have done any fines in the past for no dog tags.
Okay, but is there a fine, a specific fine for it, or does a bylaw state that, or do you know?
I would have to research the bylaw on that, I'm sorry, but
Okay, I'm just interested because it's, I know that we don't collect everything that all the people's dogs that are out there, and I think it's appropriate that we start to help to pay for this dog pet. And it's an expense to the township. Okay, thank you. Daryl? Further questions? Okay, do we approve in principle the animal control budget as prepared? Mary Catherine moves it. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried.
So we'll move forward to the heritage budget, which is in section 19 of your binder, page 38 of 59. And it is agenda item 5.1 in today's agenda. So I will just do a bit of a summary, and then I know Bob Dean and I think other members of the committee are here. So I will let him speak in just a moment and add anything we'd like to add. And then we'll open it up to council for comments and questions. So the heritage budget for this year is actually a 66% decrease from last year. It's down $2,321. Last year, Heritage had proposed that $3,519 be funded from taxation, and this year it's $1,197.80. So the main reason for the decrease this year is that we don't have the as much in cost for printing. In 2022, there was the printing of the new book, and this year they're planning to do a reprint of the Grafton walking tour, and Bob can correct me after if I'm wrong on that. So that's the main item. What else you will see within this budget that I've done from an accounting standpoint is there was $1,620 in book sales in 2022 that we actually brought into the municipality in 2023. So those have been reported in 2022 and put into reserves, as Heritage would like to use those to offset their budget in 2023. And that's why you see on their book sales line, there's only $880 there, because there's 1,620 that were sold in the latter part of 2022 that we'll be bringing into revenues to offset the expenses. You'll also see coming in from reserves $1,400. Heritage does have some reserves sitting, and there's $1,400 in there that I confirm with Bob Dean had been set aside in past for the any upgrades needed or to facilitate any costs for the Wicklow Church project. So, however, there is a issue paper on file for the Wicklow Church project, and we're also showing another $10,750 to come from the township reserves to ensure that the costs of that are covered. Now, I say that, but in discussions with Bob, we did put in an additional 10% over and above a past quote that was received. But there is understanding there that it may cost a lot more than that. And again, I'll let Bob talk about the details of that, but we don't have a recent quote at this point in time. So the cost of that could be larger and require a further drain on reserves. However, something that isn't in the budget papers that our clerk, Pat Kemp, has already alluded to in our first budget day is that when we received the information from the federal government for funding, I was looking through and there was a line item in there that talked about buildings that needed renovations or upgrades that were considered to be heritage. So I know Pat had said she's going to look into that a little bit further to see if that might be an option for the township, and that would reduce the amount of reserves that we would need to pull to ensure that church gets the needed repairs. So I think that kind of summarizes it. That being said, the total that we did put in there for the repairs was $12,150, and all the details of that are in the issue paper. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob Dean in case he would like to add any more comments. And I'll have you come up, Bob, if you don't mind, and sit in my chair so that council can hear you.
Come on up, Bob. Thank you, Nicole. Welcome, Bob. Nice to see you.
Okay. This clearer now? You okay?
It's hard to tell, and people out there might know, but here we do very well.
So am I right in saying we're just going to be really talking about the Wicklow Church?
Yes,
I've got some pages on your desk earlier today. And what we've got here is a township asset, which has had bad rot starting in 2017, 18. And it's heading into a situation which is demolition by neglect. We don't really have much more time to fix this. And as each year goes by, the cost of fixing it is going up. The quotes, Nicole and I have had considerable discussions about the quote last time, which was a few years ago. And you have it in at about 12,500. I don't believe that will do it if we continue to use the conventional way of fixing it. Convention being getting a major contractor in who doesn't want to do the job, and he'll put a price on, which will be the worst case scenario. I think we should adopt a different approach. Time and materials, we don't know what it's like until you get the wall out, inside or out. Whether we've got to replace vertical struts within the wall, we don't know. Time and materials, handyman approach, and put him on staff, temporary staff, like we do with students at the arena during the summer. And you can get WHSIB for 3 months minimum. He won't need 3 months, but I think you'll find that we can come in at this price if we take that approach. If we go back and get new quotes, try it if you like, but I think you'll find that we'll end up where we were 2 years ago. One quote about at that time around about 11,000. And if I remember right, I didn't have to check with Darryl, see what his memory's like, but I think the next one was pretty close to 20,000.
that sounds to me like somebody that really doesn't want to work, like as you're suggesting, doesn't want to work, but if you want to give me a quote, I will quote. So.
Anyway,
Have you got any
that's-
comment to
that's-
that, Troy? Can we do that or not?
Nicole might be able to answer if we can bring somebody in and, for the part-time. I personally don't see an issue right now, but when you're talking about it, I'm thinking reaching out to the high schools. I know they have construction carpentry classes that like to take on community projects, and this could be one that we could look into as well.
Good idea.
Yeah.
I'd just like to add a little, another idea, second idea on this approach would be the handyman who repaired the Baptist church, Baptist again, in Coburg last year. I haven't met him, I don't know his name, but they're very satisfied with what he did and the price.
Well, we could certainly consider that. Maybe if you, next time you have your Heritage Committee meeting, you'll have an opportunity to find out that fellow's name and give it to Mary Catherine, and Mary Catherine can provide it to staff.
At this stage, before even approaching anybody else, we have to research with WHSIB what this temporary 3-month program is. I tried to do it myself, but because I was not an employer, they wouldn't talk to me properly. Third person I spoke to over the course of a week was willing to talk to me on a hypothetical basis, and he said it would be about $600 to $700 for a temporary person for 3 months.
Well, Troy or his staff will be able to get that information. I'm sure.
Once, if this is a if that approach is approved with regards to the insurance, then I'll see what I can do with handyman. I've got several.
Well, I think we'll let Troy,
All the school ones, sorry.
yeah. Well, I think we'll let Troy take a look at it and see what's the best for what. My opinion, we fix it. It's been too long. You can see by the pictures, and we should get it done and get it done this year.
Thank you very much.
Any comments from council? Go ahead, Councillor Booth.
Through you, your worship, maybe to Pat. Pat, a couple of questions. The Heritage Grant that you were talking about in Nicole. Do we know when that's coming out and how much can you apply for?
I know it's February is the deadline date to submit it. And I haven't looked into the details yet. That's this afternoon's project, so.
So my concern would be, and all good ideas that you're talking about, Bob, but it sounds like it's going to be piecework meal again. My suggestion would be, I don't think you're going to be able to go and put in the Heritage Grant that you're going to have a handyman or you're going to have students do it and you're going to be $10,000 or $11,000 or something like this. Last year, when this came to council, I went over there and looked at the building and Bob, I agree with the pictures you showed us. It's just not the window sills, it's the siding too is rotting.
There are parts of the siding. Yeah.
So I would rather we fix this and do it completely so that next year you have a great building for the 200th anniversary in that. And I think we're going about it the wrong way. We're still looking at doing a piecemeal of repairing the window frames or this or that. That whole building needs to have somebody like an aluminum siding contractor or somebody look at it to do the window frames, to do the siding, to do everything. And if we're going to apply for a grant, I don't want to apply for a grant for $8,000 or $9,000 or whatever to do a partial job. I'd rather have somebody go out there, give us a price. They can probably do that in the next week or so. And Pat, you could put that number in there to say it's a more accurate account that we want to do the whole building. We want to do the window frames, the siding, everything so that, and if it's $20,000 or $25,000, let's do it properly. But that's.
I think that's admirable. I'm just a little bit taken back. I've sat here before.
Yeah.
Not heard this approach.
Well, that's why I'm suggesting something different. I know last year in dealing with this, they were looking at, oh, we're going to get somebody to try and come out and do the window frames and everything, but nobody's interested in a small job like that. They don't want to do that.
That is the key phrase.
So let's look differently to say, let's have somebody go out there. There must be some companies that the town works with, Troy, you know, that can go out there, give us a price to say, what is it for the window frames, the siding, the soffit, whatever it needs. It's not so much that the building's a replica. So it's not like putting siding over the wood is going to change anything because it's not the original building anyway, right? So let's do it properly so that the next time somebody's coming to council, Bob, you, me, and all of us here will be long gone 50 years from now and somebody else can replace it, but let's do it properly. And I think if we're going to apply for the grant, let's do it. One other question, and maybe Nicole can answer this, is Nicole, in the reserve funds, the Heritage HA has $10,000 sitting in there from the Save the Curtain. That $10,000 that's sitting in there, is that possible of moving that to the Heritage, or is that locked in there for only for the curtain? And maybe you can answer that, Bob.
It's been a question. Nicole threw it at me only a few days ago, and I'll tell you where I'm up to. The curtain there is part of the heritage assets of this building. I believe the curtain went in quite a few years, maybe 40 years after this building was built. So that puts it around about 1900. The curtain was taken down and refurbished or repaired. I'm saying 25 years ago. Rick thinks it's since then, but doesn't really matter. By a company, as far as we can determine, in Trenton. I'm talking to the chair of HA at that time. Name escapes me. He was saying that his recollection is that It was covered by a Trillium grant to repair it. The Trillium grant was very much late to coming through. Township had to find funds to pay the contractor. When the Trillium fund came through and the $10,000 rang a bell with him, it may have just been put in to reserves for a future time. Now, come to today. I would like to get an expert in to have a look at it, to see whether it needs to have, shall we say, a reasonably priced repair now or renovation now than do what we've done with Wicklow Church, which was to leave it for years. So my preference would be to keep that in for the curtain until we can get an expert opinion on the curtain.
Okay, that's fine. I just noticed that there's $10,000 sitting there for many years and it's like, are we going to use it or not? And if you're going to save it for the curtain, then that's fine. But my suggestion would be if we're looking at the grant from the government, let's get a price to fix the whole thing and let's not do a partial fix because Bob, in 2-3 years, you're going to be coming back to us that the siding on the building is going and we're going to have to do that.
Well, I prefer your idea of 50 years. I won't be here, but you may be.
I won't be here in 50 either.
I guess-
So
I guess the only comment I have, I look at the quote there for to replace the windows and replace the doors, $2,700. So the 11,000 must have some consideration for something else, and I would think
that was just the window frames and those prices
Just the
talking.
window repair, build, rebuild, and install 10 windows.
Yeah.
Use old window material to rebuild new doors.
See, and that was the
Window.
issue. Talking to Tim, it was sort of another patchwork. Well, we can reuse the windows, we can reuse some of this, we can do this, trying to save money. And I understand, Bob, trying to keep the cost down, but I think we got to get away from that thinking that let's do it properly. And if we're applying for the grant and the government's going to pay for it, and I'm sure Mr. Pacini and all the federal people would love to be there for a handshake next year when you're celebrating 200 years. All of a sudden, the money's available that they'll be shaking your hand, Mr. Mayor, too, that let's spend it properly. So
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just
No,
saying that
yeah.
there may be a lot of money that's already considered in there, but we should go and get it done and get a good cost and know the.
and I don't think it would be too hard for us to find. There are aluminum siding people that can come out there and it just has to be a more ballpark figure because we're running off this figure, which I don't blame you, Bob, but we could be way off the mark with this.
May I just interject on something? This is an unheated building. There's no electricity there anyway. It's an unheated building and we don't need to go to double glazing. We should keep the original glass. It is not dissimilar to the shape of this. And I think if we went down, one of the contractors, when that came through, was all for putting, standard square windows in. No.
You want to keep it.
Well, I would agree with you. Let's keep the original windows.
When they go for quotes or get somebody, you can use the same glass, you can cut the glass if you've got a good glass cutter.
Okay. Troy and his team will take a look at it and see where the best, to get a good cost and bring the building up to where we need to go. And we'll go from there. Mary Catherine?
I'm just listening to Councillor Booth's excellent argument here. And I would add that the township is working towards asset management and probably directing HA to think, what are the assets moving forward so that we're not trying to play catch up like what is happening here.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Booth.
Now that I have you here, Bob, not to let you off the hook, but I do have a question about your budget since you're here. I don't let anybody off the hook, but Bob, could you tell me why, and maybe, or Nicole could, last year you had budgeted $1,050 for conferences, courses and meals, and you spent almost $1,800.
You will see, or the detail will show that I was a speaker at the conference and I received $1,000 fee, which went to into, what did you put it into? Right at the top, where's that thing?
Well, that would be revenue,
The-
right?
The reason is, yes, two of us went and I got $1,000 fee for being one of the speakers.
Okay, good, thank you. And I just noticed the comment there where it says under stationary supplies, you didn't use any last year, so you want to take last year's and add it with this year's, which I'm sorry, I would disagree with. If you didn't use it last year,
It's
Then-
gone, is it?
well, no, it's up to all counselors, but my firm belief, if you didn't use it last year, I mean, you had $200 in 2021, you spent 40. You had $200 last year, you spent 0. Now you're asking for double, 100%, $400 because you're saying you didn't use it last year. My way of thinking is if you didn't use it last year, well, then you didn't use it. So,
Well, we were having difficulty getting into the building most of last year. COVID.
okay, so what would be the $400 for stationery
Well,
and
what
supplies
it
this
is
year?
This year is we have had a change in the volunteer for the harp, and the new volunteer, I was giving her a bit of leeway to start making some changes in there. She is experienced in this area, whilst Joan Kelly did a wonderful job and brought that room from a junk heap to relatively well organized. But what I'd like to do, and we haven't really formulated, the lady's only been with us for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. What's a month, isn't it now? Anyway, what I want to do is, here's the grand plan. We have archives here. There are archives at the school. I've been through them. There are archives at the Anglican Church. I'm sure, and I know there are archives at the United Church and possibly also the Catholic Church. They don't want to give them up. There's no reason why we can't have an archive for the township so that we can refer to where they are. It's one of the things I have yet to discuss with Trish Groom, but it will be one of the long-term things, and maybe she'll be needing some software to do.
Okay, thank you. And
So it's in the cloud. I agree with you, and it may not take place.
Yeah.
But it's an idea.
thank you. And just one other one, and I guess this is just a concern that I have, and maybe other counselors don't know, but last year when it came to budget, we had a lot of people that had a miscellaneous fund. And that miscellaneous fund we discussed last year is we wanted to try and reduce that down to very minimal or nothing, because there's no real reason to have a large miscellaneous fund if you are properly allocating the money to the lines, the budget lines. And you've got quite a large miscellaneous fund, probably the largest out of everybody in the town at $1,000. I would prefer to see, Bob, if you know you're going to spend certain things, then make it a budget line so that it shows us, because a miscellaneous fund to me means that you could spend it on anything.
Absolutely right. Boy, I've had this discussion for the last 40 years.
Just for maybe
If-
next
if
year.
If I knew what it was going to be spent on, it wouldn't be a miscellaneous. I see miscellaneous very much as a contingency fund, another word, preferable for miscellaneous. And in any case, what I have suggested at other times is that the miscellaneous fund could only be spent with, unless it's not $20, but with the approval of township.
Well, I don't think we have any control over your miscellaneous fund.
Well, why don't you take control of it?
Hey, if you want to give me control of it, I don't know if you'd want me to have it, but
But
my concern is I would like to see, Bob, maybe in the future, and I know, Mary Catherine, you're going to say it's a treasurer thing, but we found out it's not so much a treasurer thing as when it's clubs and that they need to be told that find a budget line, or if there's not a budget line there for what you want, have Nicole make that budget line. And I would prefer to see a miscellaneous fund of $100 or $200 that it's, you know, if you had to go out and buy coffee or this or that or something extraordinary, but $1,000 is quite large for a miscellaneous fund.
Yes.
But just a suggestion, and thank you for answering your questions. I didn't mean to grill you too much, but you got off a lot easier compared to some of the other ones I talked to.
No, I appreciate your questions.
Mary Catherine, do you have a comment?
I think we should work with our treasurer to tidy that up because I agree, I don't like the term miscellaneous at all showing up, but on the other hand, where are you putting book printing? There is no line that fits into. So yes, if we can, or the Heritage Committee can work with the treasurer and see if we can come up with something better.
Okay, but we did spend $775. Just out of curiosity, you know what that was for last year?
I'm sorry?
$775 was spent in 2022 from miscellaneous. Just wondering if you have an idea of what that was.
I should have done. Sorry, John.
Okay.
Escapes me at the moment.
That's fine. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, did you want to go ahead first, Nicole?
I might be able to answer one of those.
Okay.
I won't grill you any further, Mr. Dean, but thank you for everything you do. I think we get good value for what the HAW committee does and continues to do. So I do see where Councillor Booth is coming from, but I do recognize the hard work that you do as well. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
And I don't know if I've thanked you before, but publicly anyways, I know I have thanked you the other way around, but the book that your team put together is fun to read, exciting, and I've enjoyed it, and I've heard a lot of people say the same thing. So
Well, I know you're busy,
Go
so I
Hawks.
won't go into any greater detail, but it has subjects there. It is for the township, obviously, but there are subjects there which are applicable across the province. And we're going to, not sure how, but we want to try and get this information out to libraries in Toronto
good.
as references.
Thank you, Bob. Do you want
Thank
to
you.
give another comment?
I can have a look and see if I can answer your.
Okay. Oh, you might have it right there. Oh, okay. We'll take a motion though to approve as prepared, moved by Mary Catherine, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. Further discussion? All in favor? Carry.
Now that we're talking about that, would we need a motion, Pat, or something? Could we have somebody go out maybe in the next week or so and give us sort of a ballpark figure of what it would be to do that, Troy, so that we can have that information for Pat? I just don't want to miss the grant.
Go ahead.
Through you, your worship, I'll take the lead on it. I'll work with Bob. I'll get Pat the information so we can do the grant and stuff. So I'll
Okay.
take the lead on this project.
And then that way, if we don't get the grant, well, then we'll go back to Plan B, which is the $12,000 that comes up in the issue paper. Then we'll have to go that way then.
Through you, Mayor, we were just discussing that 775, we both agreed was the cost of having the map here on the wall refurbished.
Well, there's something miscellaneous. You wouldn't really think of doing that, would you?
So moving.
Moving ahead.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda, 5.2, is Police Services Board budget. And that is at 20. It's hard to hear you guys. Oh, sorry about that. And it's on page 40 of 59. Okay, so the Police Services Board budget is a 0.88% increase over last year. This is one of our larger levy impact lines as a whole for the municipality, but the change over year is only a 0.13% levy impact. The biggest impact on that is the increase in the OPP contract, which is just under $12,000 increase over last year. You'll also see that there is a decrease that the Police Services Board is proposing over last year's budget for conference training, mileage and meal costs. They did have a budget in there last year for 5,000 and have it in there this year at 2,000. Now, I'm not sure, Mayor Logal, were you going to speak on behalf of the Police Services Board or someone here that,
I can answer any questions. Yeah.
yeah. And can go ahead. That's all I had to comment.
Oh, I'm
on.
getting ready. They're gonna,
Let Mary
they're gonna be
Catherine go
tough ones, I
first.
can tell. Mary Catherine?
I realize we don't have much control on this budget, but my understanding is that when they were combining the police services, that the honorariums would go down because then we wouldn't need to have as many secretaries being paid.
I think you're correct. We can take some out of there for two reasons. We don't, we're only meeting once per quarter. As well as, there's not as many people on board. However, we got, at the same time, although it's not an official committee yet, the intent is for the Police Services Board, individual ones of the 5 municipalities are going to join into one, and there's a lot of preparation work to be done on that. So
So we might see those savings next year more so than this year.
I would say definitely.
Okay,
Go ahead, Councillor Booth.
So on the same train of thought as what Councillor O'Neill's talking about, I'd like to see the honorariums brought to, well, I'm looking, I mean, well, I guess you can leave it at that's fine. I'm looking at the conference training miles. 2021, we had $4,000, we spent nothing. 2022, we had $5,000, we spent nothing. I mean, are we planning on spending any on the training? Do you know, Mr. Mayor, or not, or?
I would say we should. We haven't had anybody to Police Services conference in at least 2 years. I'm not even sure if they ran COVID.
Now, when we
Definitely.
talk about conference training miles and meal, that would be for you then, right? It wouldn't be for, we're not sending anybody else that, who else is on the committee?
There's 2 people on the committee. One's appointed by the province and his name is, I can't think of it right now, but he's.
So we wouldn't be sending somebody from the province. They have their own money they can use, so that's fine. So it would either be
No, no.
yourself or whoever the,
They won't send, the province won't be sending someone.
okay,
If this gentleman wants to go, he would be paid through the township. But there will only be at the maximum, one person going.
okay. And I guess maybe back to the miscellaneous again.
That's big.
We had $500, we spent nothing in 2021. We had $500, we spent $25 in 2022. And we're going up to 600. I'd like to drop that back to the 500. If the other councillors agree, I don't know why we're moving it up, but I think to Councillor Mary Catherine's concerns, and that's the concern I have. Last year, we were told that they are going to take the 5 townships and put them together with the idea of hopefully saving money. And we probably won't see that this year, but it's also been said that, well, there might not be a cost savings because certain people will have to get paid and this and that. And I'm not for that at all. If you're going to amalgamate it because you want to cut down the meetings and everything, then like you said, Mary Catherine, that means you don't need 5 secretaries taking minutes and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that next year this comes in with a little bit better savings if they're doing it. But I'd like to take the 600 and put it back down to 500. I know it's nothing, but it's the optics, right? We're not spending it anyway.
Yeah, we are spending it. I don't know what it'll be. And basically it's for a zone 3 meeting that's scheduled in March. Held out at the Centerton Community Center. And basically what it is for is lunch for the 30 people that come. And I don't know if there'll be 30 people there or not, but that's what it's for. And $500 may cover it too, so I'd be happy.
Well,
Well,
if
that's
you're saying they're having a lunch, then fine. I'm just looking historically, it's 500, we spent 0, 500, we spent $25, and it's like, but if you know we are having a lunch or something like
Right.
that for them, then that's fine. I'm good with that then.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Logo, just looking at this OPP contract and the price moving forward for 2023 budget. And there used to be, as I recall, a paper come through where we would get I call it a discount, but a discount if we didn't have the coverage that we're paying for. Is this something that, when I look at the actuals and the budget, is this something that we're going to see moving forward? Nicole, can you answer that?
Through you, Mayor Logo. I'm not aware of that, so I would have to look into it.
I recall what you're talking about, Joan. I don't know if I've seen one. Well, I haven't seen one in 4 years, but I'm not sure how long they were if they stopped putting them out or not. But it basically said this is the
Our coverage.
coverage, and this is how much we pay for clothing, this is how much we pay for trucks and cars, and for how many police services or police officers you get for that.
It was usually the
1,000.
coverage that we weren't getting, and that would be come through on the figures, and that's how we would get our discount or our amount reduced.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, what you're talking about, maybe what I have seen come through is we do get credits, I think monthly or quarterly from, and I'm sure Troy has seen these as well, where they come back as credits from the OPP, and we do post them back through that OPP miscellaneous line. So that might be what you're referring to. I'd have to look at the detail of what those are.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? I will make one comment, and it's just regarding Councillor Booth's ask regarding we're going to save money. I think say OPP is where you're going to see some of that savings, because they were scheduling their commander and 1 or 2 of his people to go to 6 meetings, 5 meetings once a month, and that was expensive.
And like Councillor O'Neill said, we should obviously save on the recording secretary too, because instead of having 5 meetings and paying somebody 5 times to take, minutes, you're only going to have 1 person. So I'm just hoping that's the way it is. A lot of times government gets involved in things and it ends up costing you more. And I don't want to be in that way. But I'm sure you're there, John. You'll keep on top of it.
I will. Any further discussion on the police service boards and police in general? Could I get a mover and a seconder to approve in principle this one? Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Moving forward to tab 21 in your binder, which is page 41 of 59. Agenda item 5.3, which is community policing. And truly, this isn't, there's no budget for this. It was just something I wanted to make sure that council was aware of, that although the community policing was disbanded, I believe in early 22 or late 2021, it might even been earlier than that, that there is still just under 25,000 in community policing reserves that could be used for community policing initiatives. Now, I know that the previous mayor did hold a final meeting at one point, and there was some discussion, I think, around a black cat. But I don't know how that ever, if that ever, anything transpired from that, or if there was ever any resolution. I don't know whether Pat might have copies of minutes from that final meeting that gave any sort of direction. However, I just wanted to make you aware that there's still money sitting there in.
I spoke to actually the chair, the former chair of the community policing is actually sitting on the police services board now. And he asked that $24,000 be put into safety. What council thought would be good safety initiatives. And he was particularly talking about the black cat and getting at least one or whatever how many we could buy with the $24,000. But he's looking, he was hoping that we would buy something that could be moved from one area to another. And that information be, we were actually stopped at Roma and seen some people that were selling them, and they didn't have it on a trailer. So I'm sure we'd have to buy a trailer or something to put it on, but they were pretty reasonably priced and give an awful lot of printed out an awful lot of information from what I've seen anyways, and that would be good for the township. Councillor Booth.
Through you, your worship, yeah, and being on last council, I know Gail Latsford, the mayor, did ask Brian to look in the possibility of purchasing more black cats, but I guess yourself, Mr. Mayor, and Deputy Mayor and myself attended Roma. We have, and correct me if I'm wrong, do we have 2 black cats now, Troy, or 1?
We just have one black cat right now.
So the idea of the black cat is just that it goes on a pole or whatever, and it records the speeds and stuff like that, but there's no signs showing the people or anything that they're speeding or anything. And what we were looking at, Mr. Mayor, was the portable sort of black cat thing that it would actually blink and show them that they're speeding and things like that you see up at Elderville. So we were looking at maybe Brian could look into that, Troy, because we have the money, something better, and it's portable. It can be set up like the mayor said, and it'll flash to say that you're going too fast. You can put signs, messages on there, too fast, or children's area or stuff like that. So maybe Brian can look at that and come back to council with that of how much it would be. And we were all pretty impressed with that.
Yes, we were. And the OPP would be, from my understanding, if we could provide that information to them, rather than suggesting they go, it looks like people are speeding along here, so you should go and check it out. If we could supply them that information, I think they would be an awful lot more responsive to.
Because it tracks the same as the black cat, Troy. It tells you the time, the speeds, the average speeds, who's going over, but it also gives you the visual effect, which is what will slow people down, right?
Okay. So Brian's gonna look after that for us then?
Through
Or
you,
she
your
will.
worship. Yes, I'll make sure that Brian provides a report on spending this money and making council aware of what can be bought, like on a portable data collecting radar.
Perfect, thank you. Any other comments on this? Yeah, go ahead.
Just
Deputy
on that, through you, Mayor Logal, just on that thought, I did receive from Roma the presentation from that company that we were looking at. They also have quite a unique setup as well, where this device is able to write tickets. And then there's another company that looks after getting the funds. And I believe it was Brantford, municipality of Brantford, wanted to be the first ones to use this. So all the data and everything is going to be going through that company if we need any to look at that. That just came through, I think it was yesterday or the day before, so I'll send it off to everyone so they can have a look at it.
Thank you, Joan. Mary Catherine?
So this is a clarification. We're at budget, correct? And so is what's sitting in front of me, either we're saying it's 0 or we're going to make a motion saying that at some point we're going to spend that for safety related? Are those the two options in front of us, basically?
So through you, Mayor Logal, my intent in doing this was that if council did want to put something into the budget and show that it's going to come from reserves and be spent on anything specific, that we did that during the budget process to ensure that it is looked after.
So is anybody then going to make a motion for however much based on that presentation should be available during 2023?
I'll make a motion that we have staff report back to us on the possibility of spending this 24,000 on a mobile radar type thing, whatever, you can come back to us. And also that these budget lines don't exist anymore then, right? After that money is gone, they're all zeros, so accept that too.
So what you're saying is we'll put the $24,000 into spending.
Yep.
All right. Is that okay with you? But cool.
I would be fine with that. The only other thing that I would mention is, do we want to leave it in this budget area, or do we actually want to move it into the public works budget and showing it coming out of the?
I think we want to, I would prefer to come out of community service or community policing, because that group was around for a long time and they did an awful lot of good things for the township. And I think we should recognize that contribution they made to them. Go ahead.
I'll just mention through you, your worship, that we'll, with Brian, I'll assist Brian in assessing what we need or what we can get for that 24,000. And then following our procurement bylaw, we'll have to do a tender RFP out. So,
Yep.
just, you know.
And it could come back that we don't only spend 20 of the 28,000, and we'll have to decide where we can spend the other 4,000. It would be nice. I agree with you, though. It would be nice to get it gone and move on, because we can always use some good safety things.
I will second that if you
Okay.
would like that seconded.
That's what I was looking for.
I was ahead of you.
You were.
She's too far ahead.
She's ahead of me.
Well, I'll take a move by you. Oh,
Oh,
No,
yes,
it was moved by Counselor Booth.
okay. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover.
Thank
All
you.
in favor? Carried. You okay, Nicole?
I am. So moving forward, I'm going to look at the library budget, and I was speaking with our CEO this morning and realized I haven't given you her explanatory notes. So I'm going to just hand those out to you now so that you have them. You can kind of peruse them a little bit while I'm speaking with you, and then I will give Elaine a few minutes to chat. And I believe she also has a board member with her who would also like to speak. So I will let them decide who they want to talk first, and I will hand these out and give you a bit of a summary.
Thank you.
Get her done. Pardon? No. No, I'm fine right now, thanks.
See the notes? Oh, okay. You shouldn't see my phone. Okay,
We're ready
Nicole?
to go forward?
Yep,
Okay,
please.
so the library budget is in section 22 of your binder. It is 5.4 on our agenda today. And it is page 42 of 59. So I will have, as I said, the CEO and board speak with you. I was just informed, the board member that's here today is Marcia Jones, and she's the vice chair of the library board. The library budget is proposed at $273,286 raised from taxation. That's an increase of $10,381 over last year's budget, or a 3.9% increase. The levy impact would be 0.15%. And the increase that the library board is proposing to council includes a 5.9% increase in wages and benefits. 3% of that is due to the cost of living allowance increase, and the remainder is due to an increase in programming. There is also a small increase in the cost of books related to that, the programming increases. Couple of other items I just wanted to bring to your attention, and this has been brought up in day one of our budgets by Councillor O'Neill, and that's the township expenses line. So a couple of years ago, I believe it's 2020, we started, rather than let's go back. We went and we looked at the square footage use of the libraries of our different community centers, and we began charging a set based on our costs for the year. We were figuring out, based on that square footage, what the cost to the library should be, and that was agreed upon by the library board. What I will tell you is, just this week, I've gone back and I now have the year-to-date costs for the community centers, and I've recalculated what the cost to the libraries would be. And I just sent that to Elaine in the last couple of days. So she has not had a chance to take that to the library board yet, but my proposed amount would be $29,361. So that's a $2,666 increase to this budget. However, it will not have any impact on the overall budget, because I will also have to go back to all the community centers and increase the amount showing coming back in from the library. So it will be a direct offset, and therefore no impact to the levy.
Nicole, while you're there, I would think my notes say for 2022, there probably wasn't enough charge back at $20,000.
So yes, so we haven't charged back for the fourth quarter, because
Okay.
I was waiting to do that final calculation to figure out what the true costs for 2022 were. So when I'm done, that will be about $29,000 in that column. I just finished doing the calculations to do that. So that isn't the final actuals number for December. And it truly won't be until we have our audited financial statements. I am going to ask the library board to come up, and I'm just going to scoot over to one side in case any questions.
Good
Well,
morning, everyone.
Good morning to you and thank you very much for coming.
Well, thank you. I'm here to represent Bill Ferguson, who was unable to attend today because of a health issue. And he had written the preamble to the work, so I will just read that on his behalf. Mayor, councillors, and guests, thank you for this opportunity to present our budget. It's a privilege to represent the library board in this capacity. Thank you for the appointment of such strong members to the board. It was really great that I wasn't rejected this time. Our work will be, he didn't write that. That was an aside, sorry. Our work will be much more fruitful due to the wide variety of interests the members of our board bring to the table. There's also been an increase in the number of members. We're up to 11 now, so that will be able to spread the work out much more effectively. In our first meeting, the board members demonstrated a strong will in their discussions, especially surrounding the budget. Our experiences were limited to what we saw and were informed of during these discussions. Through skillful questioning and paying close attention to details, we were able to gain a basic understanding of what is being presented today. I assure you that next year's budget will be a much stronger budget presentation. We will be applying all that we have learned during the next year to inform our direction concerning the next budget. I am sure you have questions about the funding we receive from you, whether it is adequate for our needs or more than we require. In comparing information gathered from the provincial website, I performed a comparison comparing 34 similar sized population municipalities. Our funding is the same as most of our peers on average. Our funding in 2021 was 248,107. Excuse me. The 34 municipalities I compared had an average of $244,294. I look forward to incorporating the numbers for 2022 when they become available. The numbers I have provided demonstrate the amount of money you will approve in our budget is adequate for our needs this year. The number of patrons with library cards in 2021 was 948. In 2022, this number was around 1,100. I looked at this information for 34 similarly populated municipalities. The average was 1,480 people using library cards. The provincial average is 10,210. Our percentage is about 14% of the population of Alnwick-Haldeman. We will be working to bring our numbers of people with library cards closer to 2,000 patrons, near 30% of the population. Hopefully, it will be much higher than that by the end of 4 years. The library board has a policy that states we should inform council 2 times a year concerning number 1, the needs of the community, the development of library services, plans, and achievements, and 2, to review progress and discuss funding needs. With direction from the board, I anticipate 2 meetings per year once we have developed and draft our strategic plan and annual advocacy plan, and then put the main parts into practice. Ideally, we would have 4 one-year strategic plans during this term as we define what needs immediate improvement and then move towards more long-term planning. We will also be establishing some long-term goals that we may need financial assistance to make them occur. We will also be looking at grants and other funding in support of our endeavors. During the next year, we'll be working to meet the needs of the residents of Alnwick-Haldeman. Our intention is to improve their overall library experience, improve our programming, and work to draw more people into our libraries. We will endeavor to create partnerships that reflect our history through creating stronger ties to the past. We wish to make our website comparable to those of our neighboring municipalities, a place where historical reference programming and other information is to be updated daily or weekly as needed. In short, this next year will be about demonstrating growth and value. We will do this through discussions and by using the 2021 and 2022 statistics to inform our decision-making. Through doing this, we will also be examining our efficiencies to determine other places where we can create greater value to our communities. Libraries should be the center of their communities. We will be working to make a stronger effort in this direction. I would now like to turn this part of our presentation over to our CEO, Elaine Skinner. Hopefully I don't slide away.
That was a very good, Marcia.
Yes.
Yeah, very, well, I want to thank him too, but I can tell you it was very professionally written and very professionally presented too. And I appreciate it. And I know that council made the right decision when we put Councillor Booth on your board, because the data, the information, the efficiency, et cetera, that's the words that he just loves and breathes on. So.
This is all after one meeting.
All right, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present the library budget this year. As you can see on their screens, we have some more data for you to look at. You can scroll it, right? Okay, so the top two charts are library uses. The top one tracks our use from 2017 to 2022. Now, library uses are not just circulation. They are circulation, social media engagement, program attendance, computer use, e-resources, anything that, and even printing is included, can be included in this. So last year in 2022, our total uses for the year was 46,561. That is a lot more than our regular circulation use. These numbers helped me figure out, well, let's go down to the last part, the actual value of library uses. So in 2022, the value of our library was $1.1 million. That's a 358% return on investment. So that means that for every dollar invested in your library, each resident receives $4.58 in benefits. Our annual circulation for 2022 was 21,188. So you can see the difference between our actual uses for everything that we do and not just the traditional book lending. And looking at the yearly active membership, 2018 looks really low. That is because we changed software. So the actual users were not transferred to the new software. So we started from scratch and entered in everybody that came in the last 6 months of 2018. So that's why that looks so low. That's not our actual membership. And then at 2022, we are just over 1,000 members. So we are increasing each year, and well, we increased quite a bit through COVID. And then the next chart on the line graph on in the middle there, that is the total circulation for each month from 2017 to 2022. So you can see 2020, there was quite the dip in April. And then we've gradually been going back up when we are allowed to open again. So we are getting increases in circulation, but it's a little slow. We find we have more success now with programs. And we know we need to get out more in the community, and that is our plan for 2023, is to attend more community events and have what we call pop-up libraries. So information, maybe some little crafts for the kids to do, or used books to give away, an incentive to get people to come to where we are and sign up for a library card. But that takes staff time. So if we want to get out more in the community, that is one of the reasons to increase the programming aspect of our budget. And the final chart on that page just shows the difference between the annual circulation between physical library material, books, movies, that kind of thing that we physically take out, and our e-circulation. So we're slowly signing out more e-circulation. So we want to invest more in that as well, though ebooks are expensive. Now, I guess you didn't get a chance to look through all the explanatory notes. Would you like me to read through all the notes, or do you want to just ask questions?
I've got a question. I'm
Okay.
really surprised when you said that ebooks are very expensive.
Oh, ebooks for libraries are expensive. Ebooks for a regular average person buying them from the Kobo store or Amazon, they are well priced. But for a library, they are anywhere from $60 to $120, depending on the popularity of the title.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't understand the whole system. When I get an ebook, it doesn't necessarily be in our library, it's in somebody else's library. Is that
Okay,
right?
okay, so we have a consortia purchasing agreement. So it's a membership to Overdrive. If we were to buy ebooks for our library, it would have to be through a company like that holds the digital rights management system. Because then it can be shared.
Okay,
If we bought individual ebook titles, we could only keep them on one device. And then after, say, 6 or 7 times being read, depending on the license, then you have to repurchase that book again.
that's expensive.
Yes.
That's really expensive. So how much does how much, I know a book costs anywhere from $29 to $69. That's maybe a little bit high, 29 to.
No, prices are going up.
Okay, so, and you know, over the 10 years that you have them, they'll be borrowed 20 times. So that's roughly $3 and one. So can you relate that for me to when you get an ebook?
Okay, so when you get an ebook, when we would get an ebook, it's purchased through a plan.
Okay,
So we would get something, say $500 to $1,000 for a plan of bestsellers
okay,
that would come out throughout the year. I'm not sure exactly how many titles that would be.
okay. But you're saying it's more expensive for the library to
Yes.
supply ebooks than it is
Yes,
for-
because it's the publishers and the license agreements for the publishers. They set the fees for libraries for ebooks.
Oh, I wouldn't have realized that.
Yeah, nobody realizes that.
Greg, do you have any, you weren't going to have too many questions or comments, are you?
Just one comment, your worship, for the budget and that, and it is true what you said, Marcia. We have a great group of people and I'm really looking forward to it. But budget questions, it doesn't matter whether I'm on the board or not. I do have one question for you is, we the library is presenting a budget at 3.9%. And now that we have, Nicole, the updated numbers for the town usage, which is an extra $2,674. What does that make the library budget now?
5%.
Okay, so
Sorry, I figured that out yesterday.
you're on top of things. That's good. So I would have a concern then. I mean, I guess maybe I would like it to go back to the board or whatever. 5% hike is pretty high. And I know when the library board was dealing with these numbers, we were only looking at the numbers that we had.
Mhm.
And this is updated now. So I mean, I'm concerned that $2,674 has to go back and somehow the library has to deal with that 2674 and find out where that money's going to come from. I just don't want it added on now to the tax levy to say, oh, well, it's a little bit more for heating and everything and we're going to pay, right?
Mhm.
And no fault to the library board, like I said,
No,
or you, Elaine, we didn't have those numbers, so we went with what we have. And now that they are updated, and I'm glad we have those updated numbers. I'm just looking for myself as somewhere the library board, I think, has to take a look to come up with $2,674. And then I think it would be acceptable to me, a 3.9% increase, because the cost of living is at 6 or more. So the library board did a very good job, and yourself, Elaine, of cutting costs and trying to keep it to, you know, to a bare minimum, and for the value that we get to.
And I guess I have one other comment. Thank you, Greg. And it was mentioned at the some of the community centers, which you are part of. The housekeeping on the outsides of those some of those buildings
Mhm.
leaves they can be improved. And actually I seen it, but I had one of your staff mention it to me that works down here about the just the overall appearance. You know, the gardens
Yes.
are worn, et cetera, and Troy's going to take it on, or Public Works, and they're going to do some cleaning up, but you'll pay that portion of the.
Well, yeah, and that that should be covered under the maintenance, ground maintenance part of the township expenses.
Okay, I'm just making you aware, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
we're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. No, don't take it the wrong way, but they do need a cleaning up.
Oh, yes, because especially at the Grafton Center, the library is the library staff are the ones that get the most complaints about the gardens. So,
Yeah, and I can understand that, because they're the ones that are there, and
yes,
you won't pay for it all, because here the YMC will pay their portion of it
Yes.
too, but we'll have somebody go down there and clean them up and make them presentable so that you can all be proud of what you're seeing.
yes, because I am not a gardener.
Marcia?
Perhaps they could be a resource to give us ideas about things that we put in the gardens that are low maintenance. I really appreciated my daily commutes around the village, the fact that the flower baskets were there, but I know that they need daily maintenance.
Yeah.
But I would hate just to clean it up and make it a job that's going to be onerous to anyone.
I think you've got a great idea. I think once they're decide what should be put in, and they put them, or maybe we can ask them to help us give some guidance on it anyways. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you can make it even worse. And with probably good planning and the Green Thumbs, they do an awful lot for us already, and I wouldn't want to ask them to look after that as well.
No, I think I was as a resource.
Yeah,
For the plants.
Yeah.
What's easy to look after, what's not gonna grow crazy
yeah.
and take over.
I can remember 5 or 6 years ago, 6 or 8 years ago, we had one person that went in there, cleaned it up the first time, and we spent an awful lot of money doing it that the first time. No, Granted, she was a professional and that's what they do, but it was very expensive. And then they wanted to come back every other month and charge $500, $600 just to do that. Which ended up being a lot of money. But if you get it set up in the first place and then just, and I think that's what Troy's intention is to get it cleaned up and then, you know, the students or something kind of look after it. They gotta be some guidance there again as well, but I know the Green Thumbs like to do that type of stuff, so. Can't ask you nothing, Joan, I'm not. Any other further comments?
No, and just wanted to say thank you very much for a well-detailed budget and good luck to the new board. I'm sure we'll have some good discussions.
Yes, and I will work on getting it back down to 3.9 for our meeting in February.
That's just my suggestion. I mean, that's up to the other counselors. I know we were going off of numbers that we had, and now that it's updated, I'd like to see it try to be brought back down to under 4, right? If possible. And I
Go
don't
ahead,
know
Marcia.
how we do that.
Is there a time in which that's required to be accomplished?
That's why I'm just looking at Nicole now is how we do that if it has to go back to a group like the library, which is outside our control.
So our next meeting is February 16th.
Next library board meeting's the 15th.
Our next meeting is February the 16th. Our agenda gets published the Friday before that, so I would just need something. I can make that changes tentatively, but I would need a library board approval for that by the end of the week.
Our meeting is the second Monday of February.
That's the 15th or the 16th. So that's too late. So the library board's going to have to call another meeting.
Thank you both for your presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Is that where we're going next? One. If we're meeting for Dave. Dave coming up next? Yeah. You want to take 5 minutes? We haven't had a 5-minute or a 3-minute or 5-minute?
We
Yes,
can't do that. For the recess, we can, but not for the library
we don't have.
at this time. You can't have a motion for the library at this time because you don't have quorum.
I understand.
Okay, but yes, you do need a motion to recess,
Yes,
please.
I'll make that motion to recess for 5 minutes,
make it 10.
10 minutes.
I can second that.
Okay,
Ken,
all in favor? Carrie,
thank you.
okay, we're coming back from recess. I'll take a motion to put us back into council. Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? Motion is carried.
Aye.
Thank you. Go ahead, Nicole.
Have you go to clean the water or page 53, which is the emergency section. It's the smaller of the two. That first, and then. If you look at the emergency measures, it has actually reduced 15% over last year. And the rate community that on that is so our team has contracted out and removed the number of stuff in line. We building 314 dollars a month for 1 month. Prior, we did have some discussions around that and really There are too many people who say that cell phone and every cell phone has and how much work they can do how we can a cell phone. We did not change any of the directly allocations, everything for wages and benefits. Allocate that as of the fire budget. In prior year. And
guess the only thing that we'll add is heading into your planning with respect to the storm that just came through, and also last summer's tornadoes through the top of West Lake that remaining some onward future increases. But definitely not for this year, just with respect to emergency and agency and what train we were talking at county level, putting the CMC group back together again to make sure that we are prepared to another storm, that they are anticipating more storms, weather events.
And I guess I would have a simple question. This budget is for more training than actually having an event.
So this budget is for emergency preparedness.
Prepared.
So for setting up our emergency management centers, making sure that we have the appropriate resources there to use when an emergency happens and or is enacted. So things like we purchased a new big TV screen instead of the old monitor that was there so that we could utilize the effects of Zoom. Example, what you have here in this hall. And in these chambers, this is our second emergency management center. So we already have the infrastructure here. So it was making sure we have it at the primary place. And it's just using little bits of money each year that we can just make sure that we're going forward in the right direction. That's all.
But my question was, this is for preparation and training and those type things.
Yes.
If we ever did have the incident that was actually emergency, we don't have really nothing in this budget or anything else like that to cover that. That's my question.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes, that would come then out of our existing budgets, but then also into your funds that you would then approve through the emergency management process.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Booth?
Yeah, sorry, Chief Dawson, but nobody gets away without having a few questions asked. Just a couple of clarifications. First of all, thank you very much for the dedicated emergency phone lines. It's nice to see that we're actually saving $2,780. So that's great. I haven't seen that too much in the last 2 days where there's an actual big reduction like that. So that's good. Thank you. I guess one question, Chief Dawson, is the training supplies and exercise. You had $500 and we spent $1,719. Can you just tell us why it was so high? Was it something to do with the storms or that, or was it training supplies and exercise?
So that would have been because we had 2 meetings in 2022. And basically what that would have covered was the meeting supplies and the food for the day for the group that came in.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Just one comment on the phones. The reason why you're only seeing $2,000 savings is because of when the phones were initially let go or the contract was canceled. It does reference, it's a savings of $10,000 at the emergency management center number 1 and another savings of 10,000 at the emergency management center number 2 when we initially made this decision. So you're seeing the effect of what we actually only paid last year because we canceled the phone lines halfway through the year. So when you look at the full effect of it, it was a good decision.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Mayor Logal, just looking at the emergency measures and, I think, Mr. CAO, you're bringing a report, about the storm and I guess our emergency that we had, on Christmas Day or Christmas weekend. So I was just wondering if if there's something going to be coming forward, because I think that was an emergency here and I'm just needing some more information on what's available.
Through you, your mayor. Yes, Chief Dawson and Manager of Public Works are both going to provide a report to council regarding that storm that we had at Christmas, and in those reports will be all the detailed stuff that you need.
Thank you.
Mary Catherine, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor Logal. Sorry, Chief Dawson, that I messed up my scheduling and I'm not there in person. I congratulate you and thank you for bringing forward our first true asset management plan for the trucks. I'm wondering if we're going to see an asset management plan come forward for the other aspects of the fire department, such as the facilities and the water and the wells that are needed.
You want to hold that question until we finish the emergency measures plan? And
Oh,
then
my
we'll,
apologies. I don't,
That's okay.
sorry. Yeah, there was a little bit where I couldn't hear and I didn't know what we were talking about. My apologies.
Okay. Well, we're going to head to right there in a second. Any further questions
Okay,
on the
thank you.
emergency measures?
No, except to concur with Deputy Mayor Stover that this I anticipate giving climate change, we are going to see more emergencies, so we need to think about that.
Thank you. Can I get a mover? You want to move the emergency? Mary Catherine? Move it in principle?
Sure.
Moved by Mary Catherine.
I'd rather not actually without it sitting in front of me, Mayor Local. So if you could get someone who's looking at the paper, please.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Booth and seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. Further discussion? All in favor? That is carried.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to carry on to the fire budget. It is in section 25 of your binder, page 54 of 50. Oh, sorry, we're going backwards.
23.
23, thank you. And we're on page 44 of 59. You will note that this year there is a 22% increase in the fire budget this year over last. Last year, we also had a 20% increase over the prior year. So we're looking at $189,000 increase in this budget. And if you give me just one moment, this is the one I didn't calculate. But it should be around just probably about 2.5%.
I'd just like to make a note real quick that Councillor Ainsworth has arrived. Good to see you, Mike. Sorry, Nicole, go ahead, please.
Okay. So that is a 2.74% levy impact. Included in that, you will find that we have provided a number of issue papers. Our fire chief has prepared fire department issue papers 1 through 6. Issue paper 1 is for a community risk assessment and master fire plan. And that's to be funded partially from working capital reserves and partially from the levy, which would be 0.43% impact on the levy. The second issue paper is for the portable radios. And that is partially funded through DC reserve funds. We are able to use a growth percentage to use some of those DC reserves. But it's a very, very small portion. It's about 4.5%, I believe. And the levy impact on that would be 0.23%. The third issue paper is for the auto extrication equipment, which we are proposing to fund partially through DC reserve funds, again, for the growth portion, equipment reserves and working capital reserves. So that would actually have zero impact to the levy. Issue paper 4 is for Station 1 building upgrades. And we're hoping to access some potential funding. That's something we're still looking into. Otherwise, it would be 85% funded from reserves and 15% funded from the levy, and therefore a 0.22% levy impact. The next one is issue paper 5 for Station 2 building upgrades. And again, we're hoping to get some potential funding there. Otherwise, we need to look at that one a little further. Right now, it's sitting in the budget as being funded from potential funding sources. Issue paper 6 is for the apparatus procurement plan. And we are planning to partially fund that from the working capital reserve this year and partially from the levy at 1.64%. And I just want to bring your attention to that procurement plan that our fire chief had previously presented to past council. I had gone in before budget just to look at it and say, in order for this procurement plan to work, where do our cash flows need to be? And unfortunately, right now in the fire department, we have little to no reserves in the fire department. And for vehicles specifically, we have put away nothing. So our goal is to not just replace some of the items that are needing replacing in the coming years, but to also look 20 years down the road and say, you know, what do we need to ensure that when we get there, we have the funds, rather than being put in a situation where we're saying, where are we going to get the funds? Because we have to have these items. So it's really making sure that we're looking at asset management, and we're playing some catch up from what I can tell from all the notes that our fire chief has provided. There are some further changes within this budget other than the issue papers. I've made a few notes there that we are showing an increasing in cost recovery. So we've increased the budget there. I believe it was $45,000. We've increased that, and that's based on what we've seen in the past. As our chief, I'm sure will tell you when I give him a chance to speak, is that you know, there's no guarantees there. It's much like when we talk to building department. They don't know how many permits we're going to get. We don't know how many accidents or fires we're going to have. So we don't know how many MTO recoveries we're going to have, and we don't know how many insurance recoveries we're going to have on house fires. So that's something just to keep in mind, that we're really going by the last couple of years, but there's no guarantees on that. We are showing an increase, obviously, in equipment costs based on some of the issue papers that we are showing, and some increases in funds for agreements. Increase in vehicle maintenance and fuel costs is probably around $11,000. An increase in volunteer firefighter wages, benefits and equipment of $24,000. And fire and min wages and benefits have also increased, and the cost of living increases have been applied to that as well. So I'm not going to say a whole lot more. We've included a lot of notes. I think our chief has provided a lot of details in his issue papers, and I'm sure there's lots of questions. So I want to open it up for our fire chief to speak for a couple minutes if he has anything to add, and then we'll open it up to council to ask questions.
Touch on each issue.
Before you go, just Nicole, you mentioned it. Did you say $24,000 increase in wages? I think that's what I heard. And that wouldn't be the 3%. That's got to be.
That's volunteer fire benefit and so that if you look at any of the lines that say volunteer firefighter,
Okay.
there's also some increases there for I want to see the minor equipment. If you go to the line for wages and then you go down their equipment and supplies, there's $5,000 in there that's just for equipment and supplies.
And are we going to be hiring more than we have people now? Because I think we're a few people short. Are we not, Dave? Okay.
Sorry to answer your question, is our goal with last council was to get to 20 firefighters per station.
Okay.
We're currently sitting at total staff, including myself, 53. We will look to do that, but not until towards the end of 2023, because we have enough training and enough things to catch up on as we hire. So when trying to bring the entire team together and make sure that we're at the current standards, we can't go at it too quickly. So that will be something that we would address, increase from where we are currently for 2024.
Thank you.
Okay, so thanks, Nicole, for the introduction on that. I just wanted to touch on each issue paper so that you had a general understanding of why they've been put in, if I didn't explain it properly, but I thought it might help with some of your questions. So the issue paper number 1, the master fire plan and the community risk assessment. The community risk assessment is legislated mandatory that each community, each municipality in the province of Ontario has to do it by 2024. Your last council put it forward to go forward to this council so that it would be included in this year's budget. A master fire plan goes hand in hand with a community risk assessment and is a very good practice tool. It's my understanding that Alderman Haldeman has never done a master fire plan before. And it would be a very good guidance paper for this council to understand the needs of emergency services in the township. And it will also give us some great achievables to work towards. And it's usually done by another different party. It's not done by your fire chief. It's done by an outside party. And it's the same company that you would hire to do your community risk assessment. So we're seeing a lot of municipalities do both at the same time. That is why that's there. The portable radios is a health and safety requirement. Section 21 under Ministry of Labor is the guidance notes that give every fire department in the province the standards that we must follow. So my goal is to have our requirement, which is to have 1 radio per firefighter on every emergency scene. Right now, we don't have enough radios to meet that standard. The other thing is I would like to have is spare batteries in the apparatus, because we do not have any spare batteries at this point. So that is a necessity. Auto extrication equipment, the biggest reason for this is because the equipment has not been looked at, tested, or replaced in at least 20 years. And when we are providing responses to the 401 We need to have the appropriate tools in the hands of our firefighters. Not to mention our liability, we need to be able to rely on these tools to work.
I have one quick comment on that. In the last 10 or 12 years, and it's probably 10 or 12 years ago, someone donated the expurgation equipment for I believe was from Station 1.
I don't know anything about that. I know that probably about that time ago, they bought their first hydraulic tool, they call it, which is electric hydraulic. And it is still in service on
I think
truck
that's what it was.
471.
I think that's actually what it was.
Yeah. So to go along with that, I have put in a little bit for this year to replace one set of tools. What I'm proposing that we do, and we can discuss it at the procurement plan, is that the fire department needs to do an inventory on all of its equipment through the asset management plan and come up with a plan as to how much money it should need each year, and then to replace the tools when they need to be replaced. The majority of tools today, equipment, helmets, bunker gear, rope, gloves, boots, all of that stuff comes with a mandatory 10-year replacement. And that is a citing under the NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, that the province has gone to for mandatory certification. So this is something that we definitely need to look at. So coming forward to 24, you will see a equipment procurement plan so that your entire fire department, be it apparatus and or equipment, which is the entire fire department, you will know moving forward exactly what you're looking at and what needs to be replaced. Building upgrades, I believe that for Station 1, the pictures speak for themselves. Mary Catherine went on a tour, and Councillor Ainsworth joined us as well later on. With regards to the roof leaking, it was a necessity. And also the doors or the lack of doorways in between the apparatus bays needed to be upgraded to a fire steel door. And also the equipment room or the bunker gear room needed to have a sealed door put on it because it is supposed to be vented outside, and that is another Section 21 requirement. The roof on Station 1 has been leaking for a long time. We have had it has been repaired several times over the years. This past year, Deputy Chief Gourd went up with, I think, about 6 tubes of silicone and tried to seal it every which way he could. But when you look at the design of the steel that was used as the roof material, it is either shrunk or moved or something, but it doesn't have the appropriate overlap to keep it watertight. So I have put in the recommendation that we really need to do something. That building is, I don't know, 30 years old, maybe more. And I believe it's a great building. I think that it will last a long time if we can care for it. And one of those things is the inside has now been repaired. So the next step would be to get the roof replaced, and hopefully that will make that building last a long time. And that comes with painting the front doors. We've already done some work outside around the monument that's there, and we plan to do a nice garden there, and it would be nice to get a nice sign out there. We put a flag at the front of the building. It definitely becomes a focal point of the community as people come off the 401 and pass by. Not to mention during storm times, people use it as a place of refuge. I have a nice card to share with you later. And then Station 2 upgrades. The SCBA procurement went through last year. We have a gentleman at Station 1, Captain Jason Whitelaw, that works for Cameco in Port Hope, and he was able to obtain a SCBA air compressor. And an SCBA stands for self-contained breathing apparatus. That is the air packs that you see firefighters wear on their backs. And to fill those air tanks, it's 4,500 PSI, which is a lot of air pressure, and you need a significant air compressor to do that. You can't simply buy one from the shelf at Canadian Tire and fill those air bottles. They have to go through air testing quality because people are breathing this in. And it also has to go through a multi-stage air compressor because of the amount of PSI that goes into our bottles. Currently, we've been running to Cobourg and or Hamilton Township to fill our bottles. There is a county air trailer that can be used for emergency events. But when we look at training and exercises, when we're using the air, we need to fill it. If we have an emergency, a fire emergency, and we need the air, we can have the ability to fill it at our own station. So our plan was to put this new air compressor at Station 2 in Centerton. So Jason got the air compressor donated. The value of that air compressor is about $50,000. So to put it in there, one of the things we need to do is remove the water tank, the old water tank, now that the new roads department building's been built and the water no longer goes through that big tank. We need to move it out of the small annex building that was joined onto that fire station. And we need a place to put this, not to mention, we also need to build an appropriate bunker gear room that is vented to the outside and sealed. And we can repurpose the annex where this metal tank is in and use the existing building. So that is a reason why we're asking for some of that funding. And that is to do a little bit each year, not to mention the office area, the washrooms, and the kitchen are as old as that building, same as Station 1. And we're looking to just incrementally do a little bit each year. So we haven't put an entire project number at you, just a little bit to try to help with the budget, but also we can do a little bit with the funds.
So you're going to give a portion of what has to be done there with the $100,000.
So Station 1 is the $100,000.
Okay,
That's for the roof.
yeah,
Station 2 was 25,000. That's in another part of the budget.
it looks like the same stuff as that too, though.
It might be combined to read 125,000. I don't have it in front of me here.
Okay,
But it is identified as 2 items and 2 issue papers.
okay.
Okay.
And one other comment, this is very nice to hear that Camco donated that.
Yes.
Did we recognize them in any way?
We
With a thank
haven't,
you, or-
we haven't yet, because we need to have it installed and we need to have it go through the proper health and safety testing.
Okay,
And before we would do something like that, and I would have to go back and ask Jason on that.
yeah. I'd
But
like to-
definitely it is 100% worth recognizing for sure.
Yeah.
But right now it's in 2 pieces sitting on the floor waiting for the appropriate approval. But once if we have the ability to go forward, then yes, that is something that we would do. Cameco also donated a machine to Crammy.
Oh, did they?
Have become a major supporter of the county fire program through the Northumberland County Fire Chiefs Association. So, yeah, big help. And then the apparatus procurement plan. I should start by saying that I was extremely impressed by the amount of work Nicole put into this. I had put together a 20-year plan with some basic numbers to it, but Nicole is the one that made it work. And when I say made it work, it's because it gets us, the entire plan gets us out of the hole that we're in. It gets us from behind the 8 ball to a point where we are dead even, to a point where we will have the funds, the municipality will have the funds in the future to replace the apparatus as it becomes needing to be replaced. So under the NFPA, again, a fire apparatus has a maximum life of about 20 years. It says that for a first run response vehicle, so that means first out the door, you have up until 15 years. As a second run response, it can be 15 to 20 years. And as a third response can be 20 to 25 years. My recommendation to council and to the township is that we really can't afford to have vehicles around to be third response. So that is a big reason why we use mutual aid. We definitely can have vehicles around in second response, but as they get older and as long as they're in good shape, we can have them recertified. And we can try to keep them in the fleet for as long as possible, up to the 20 years. But my goal is to get to the point where the stations have more or less just first run response vehicles. Because investing in iron, investing in apparatus to be around as spares for when you need them might not be the most efficient practice. So the apparatus plan identifies this ability. Each station would have 1 pumper. Each station would have 1 rescue truck, And you would have one tanker in the north and one tanker in the south. And then it identifies 2 utility trucks that have grass fire units inside the bed. They're slide-in units. They are a lot cheaper than ordering a fire pumper apparatus. So that is a big reason why I looked at the overall efficiency of what vehicles we have and what we need to provide the service adequately. And that's why I put that forward to you. We also have a tanker truck in Station 1 that has not passed its fire certification for several years. And so I've identified replacing that vehicle through this plan, but that also includes moving apparatus. So right now there's a pumper tanker in Station 2 that can come to Station 1 if we put a pumper in Station 2. And then it covers the entire municipality adequately. The other thing that I've recommended in this procurement plan is to not go with the custom fire apparatus. The custom fire apparatus, usually you see something like a Spartan cab and chassis, and then you have a body built on it. The Spartan cab is those flat nose cabs that you would see. Coburg has them, Hamilton has them. They are running in around $350,000, $400,000 more than a regular commercial cab and chassis vehicle like you see what we have. There are benefits definitely when it comes to health and safety and accidents, etc., with the Spartan cab and chassis, or sorry, the custom cabs. Certainly in rollover crashes, etc. So that should be mentioned. But I believe that with our call volume and with our rural community, our population density, that we are fine to move forward. It is at least my recommendation to move forward with our commercial cab and chassis as they are. And it's because we can run a very good, efficient, well-practiced fire department with adequate equipment that will allow us to do the job. And that's some of the effort that's gone into this procurement plan. But it should be very clear that the effort that went into making it possible for you, meaning the dollar values and how it gets to where it needs to get to, that definitely falls at Nicole's desk. So thanks.
Can I ask you a question? Pumper 474, pardon me, 481 is 10 or maybe 11 years old, and that has to be replaced.
So that's tanker 481. Yes, that truck was originally built as a vacuum truck. Okay. You know, the vacuum trucks that you see going around, and you will have a catch basin.
Yep.
Or a grate in the road, and they lift it and they suck the dirt out of it. That's what that truck was originally designed for. And then there was a fire pump put on the front of it. And so it was made into, at the time, it was made into a fire pumper tanker apparatus. The problem is the way it's designed, it has failed its fire certification, its ability to pump enough water to man a fire. It has failed for the last 5 years in a row. And it needs significant repair in order to make that into a certifiable fire apparatus. So my recommendation is to move it on and get the asset out of it that you can, and go with an appropriate fire apparatus that meets the new standards. So the pump size in that is a 550 liter per minute pump, and the minimum requirement today is 750.
And was that at the time 752?
I don't know, and I don't want to comment on the purchase of the vehicle.
Yeah.
I wasn't here.
No, but yeah, it seems to be that maybe we ordered the wrong one.
Again, I'm not going to comment on that because I wasn't here, and it would have been up to the people of the day. And yeah, the end.
Go ahead. Right.
Through you, your worship, if we're talking about tanker 481, which I think you said Chief Dawson is from Station 1, that's a water tanker. And reading the budgets yesterday, and the Works Department is asking for 2 tankers for water. Is that truck, when you say it doesn't pass the test, could that be used as a work truck to disperse water? Is that possible that we could transfer that vehicle to the works yard?
That would be a conversation to have with the works manager, with Brian. So when I say it doesn't pass fire certification, there's a difference between fire certification standards and road safety standards. So that truck does not have the ability to flow enough water to fight a fire. That's the standard and the certification that it won't pass. But it does have the capability, and yes, you could use it as a tanker truck.
Okay, so maybe that's something that Troy, we could look at tomorrow with Brian. It's if instead of selling it on Gov Deals and somebody getting a deal on it and using it to spread water on their, you know, whatever, they're obviously not going to use it for the fire department. It's possible we could use it for the ground, for the roads, because do the roads not use it when they're just sprinkling water on the gravel and that? Is that what it's for?
To you, Mayor. Yes, in my past experience in Public Works, I have seen many uses of the old fire trucks that we use just to water down our gravel roads during construction. Also have used in recreation to water down some ball diamonds and stuff like that. So there is a potential multiple use in Public Works, but that's a good question tomorrow for Brian.
Okay, good.
Great question.
Okay.
thinking.
And I just have a few more, Mr.
right
Mayor,
ahead.
for the chief. Just looking at the revenue, and maybe this is more for Nicole or that, and being the liaison with the fire for the last few years on the previous council, I guess the question always came up about if we're looking at the cost recovery for the insurance and MTO. So when the fire department goes out and it's an accident on the 401 or the roads or something like that, chief, and we put that into the insurance and they pay us back. Nicole, what happens to that money? That money looks like it just goes back into the general coffers. Is that right?
You can if you want, like.
So that question came up in last council as well. And it's been a popular question. It is rolled into the budget. So it comes into the income side, which is applied to the expense side. So it does affect the overall budget. It is not earmarked for any specific type of spending. When we were using Fire Marquee to collect these, there was a 30% charge on everything collected for fires. That excluded the MTO, being like the 401 response and or insurance claims. So if somebody has a car accident in our township and they're not from this township, then they usually receive an invoice. That's kind of customary across the province. So we have, with the fire, what it used to come back from Fire Marquee, that money could only be spent on certain things. So currently, because we're not with Fire Marquee any longer, the money does come in and it gets applied to the entire budget. Is that correct, Nicole?
The entire fire budget. Not. Yeah. So was that your question?
Well, it does as a revenue, but it's not something that the fire department can use, because I'm looking at the issue papers, for example, the extradition equipment that is used on the 401, and that, to me, if insurance is paying the fire department, you know, we're getting back money from them. I was hoping that somehow some of that money can be used, for example, to purchase the equipment that we're using to extradite people out of their vehicles, right? So I guess it's the same as everything, right? It would be the same as public skate money that shows as revenue for parks, but it goes into the big pot, right? I'm just saying with fire, I don't know. I'm not an accountant. You are, Nicole. You can look at it to say, is that possible that a percentage of that money could be taken back from insurance to say it applies directly to the fire for purchase of stuff?
Through you, Mayor. So if you were wanting to earmark those funds for something specific, the best way to do that is to, in a year budget, to have it transferred into a reserve specifically for that cost, so that when you have that cost, that's where you're drawing it from.
Yeah, because it's a large amount of money, right? In 2021, it was almost $100,000. Now we're at $105,000 that I think we should be earmarking that money from the insurance companies back directly into fire, not into the general pot where it gets mixed up with everything to say some of these issue papers that we have with some expensive equipment, for example, the equipment, the jaws of life and all that, I think that you're talking about, that we can apply that to that so that it's not, I mean, to me, the equipment's got to be there, but the taxpayers, you know, I think would value that the insurance company is actually paying for some of that stuff, which is good. But I guess
Well, I think you bring up a great point, and even for a rescue truck, I mean, it's going out on the 401. And if we're getting money from the 40, or insurance from the 401, shouldn't that be going to, those rescue trucks?
So in essence, it is. If you read the budget, you have the income side, so we're showing the money coming in. And I believe that Nicole put a note down further on an expense side where that money is being used for. Is that correct?
However, we have, I think on the extrication equipment, if that's what you're talking about specifically, we are showing it being funded through reserves. So if we were to be using it against that, that specific line item, then there would need to be some reductions in other places if we're going to be basically taking it out of the levy.
just makes sense to me. If we're getting money from the insurance companies, let's put it back into the fire department for purchasing of the equipment that we need that's being used for it, right? But I'll leave that with you. There was another question in last year's council, maybe that Nicole, you can answer. We got rid of the Argo, right? I see the Argo is gone and pumper 492. So did we sell those? And then if you sell those, what happens to that money? Does that money go back into the general pot, or does the fire department get the money for when they sell old equipment?
Through you, Mayor Logal, the sale of surplus equipment line does show the sale of those items. And what I have recorded at the moment is that those funds going back into equipment reserves for the fire department for use in subsequent years. Now, if council wants those sales to go towards something else, but generally that's how those would be treated, as if we're selling equipment, it would be those funds would be used for purchase of equipment in the future. And I think on one of the one of the issue papers, I had noted bringing those funds back out of reserves towards the equipment.
Okay, and another one, maybe Pat, this is for you. You could work some magic. Station number 1. Could we declare that a heritage site and put in for a grant for the $100,000 roof for that?
Yes, if it's only 40 years old. Is that heritage?
Well, when I seen the Exploring the Green and Inclusive Community Building, I don't think it would qualify. I do have some training on that this afternoon, so I'll be able to let you know more about that after.
Coming back to with, you guys number?
Oh, I got a few more, but
I'd
just
just like to
yeah,
take
go ahead.
one then, with the sale of the property in Roseneath, is that going directly to the fire budget then?
that was my
As
next
an
question.
income?
It shows in the issue paper, the $85,000 going towards the roof, which you can comment on. I think that's a really good idea that you've come up with, thinking outside the box. We sold the old fire hall. That $85,000 should be put towards one of the fire halls, and especially if it's $100,000 for the roof, then let's use that towards the roof cost, right? I'm sure the chief would love to trade in the old barn fire hall there for a new roof on his station number 1. But that's a good question, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
I will make up one comment though, and I think it was asked yesterday when Mayor Catherine took a call. They were wondering if since it was coming out of Roseneath, if that could be more directed to the Roseneath area. I don't know if we can do that or not, but
Well, my comment would be you have a beautiful fire hall up there that cost us $2-3 million. So that money that we're paying for that debenture means that we're lacking money from the other 2 fire halls that are falling apart. So that would be my argument, but I'll leave it up to you two if you think you can spend it better at Roseneath. I wouldn't be spending $85,000 on a new fire hall, that's for sure. But I understand your comment. And just one more, and then I'm done, Mayor, I promise, is
Go ahead.
through the chief, did we not get a grant or something last year from Enbridge or something? Didn't they give us some money or something? Was it for an RVT or I can't remember?
So we did get a grant from Enbridge to put towards an RVT that shows in line under 2022 budget actual, which is the first line under fire grant. And actually, Pat just emailed me the other day about that. So we have to get back to them about how we're going to use that money. So one of the things that when we applied as part of a $48,000 project to purchase an RVT. And so they donated $10,000 towards that project. We started the sale of old equipment to gather the funds for that, but then that just didn't go any further. So one of the things that we could do if you approve the apparatus procurement plan, if we continue with the sale of old equipment in 2023, we could raise the remainder of the funds to make good on that grant. I would have to review with Pat the final date for us to provide for that grant. My hopes are that we can fulfill it so that we don't have to give it back.
So that would be my concern. If Enbridge going to give us $10,000, we don't want to have to give it back because we haven't purchased something. And I'm sure they, like any other company, when they're making a donation, want to see it go towards something, not just go back into the pot where it's mixed in. So maybe we could look at that where we can, if we're buying something, so that we can have the official thing with yourself and the mayor and that, shaking the hands from somebody from Enbridge. And thank you very much for the new vehicle that you helped purchase. That would be great, because I don't want to lose the $10,000.
Can you, I've lost my notes. RVT, what is an RVT?
Recreational vehicle.
I can use one of them.
So could you explain what it is, just so I'm making sure I know?
So it looks like a John Deere Gator, or Suzuki makes them, and they have a full cab on them now and a box in the back. And in the box in the back, we have a grass fire unit for the summer. And we also have the ability to carry the Stokes basket, which is a rescue basket. So if we get called to the county forest or a snowmobile trail or an ATV trail in the summer, that we have the ability to transport the patient back out. And we also have a buggy that goes on the back of it that we tow, that the patient can go on as well. So EMS don't access the rural areas, and well, I shouldn't say that. They don't access a terrain that you cannot drive an ambulance across. And our forests are too big to walk. So this is where these RVTs come into a lot of assistance. We have tracks set up on it for the winter time and wheels for the summertime. We just went through this conversation with the County Chiefs Association. It wasn't known that we actually had a track unit. When there was vehicles stranded on the 401 past Brighton, they had used their track unit and could have used another one as an example in assisting our surrounding municipalities. So not to mention, it might have been really good for a certain via train that was stuck on the tracks for a period of time to get people out. So these units, while their frequency of use is not high, when you do need them, they're extremely helpful. So we use them for grass fires, rescue, patient assessment, like patient access, you name it.
Yeah, I'd be sure Enbridge would love to be there for a photo op and with us shaking hands and showing that we bought this RVT and it's something that it shows for their money. So hopefully we can move on that, whatever needs to be done. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Members of council, Deputy Mayor Stover.
I guess one of the, through you, Mayor Logo, one of the big things that sticks out in my mind that, I mean, we are putting our firefighters out on the at an accident or at a scene and we don't have enough equipment for them. And I think it gets to the point where it's a bit embarrassing. And I think we need to, you know, what you've got in here, we more or less have to step up the plate and put it in place.
So my comment would be that the department has had enough equipment. The department has had the appropriate apparatus for the time. But we've let them become old. And then as new certifications come forward, all of a sudden we get to a point where we're left holding the cards going, okay, so now we don't have the same number of equipment in service because they've gotten past that point of being able to be in service. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense. And I guess one of the things is, in my past profession, the radios, I think, are a no-brainer. Like that has to go, everybody wanted their own radio. The thing is, the batteries are a hard thing to keep track of, but I'm sure you'll have something in place to make sure the batteries aren't laying in the bottom of the locker.
Good question. Good point. So first thing is, with some of our aging apparatus, I'll use 483 as an example. 483 is a pumper tanker and it sits up in station 3. It was at station 2 at one time, but got moved up to station 3 when the new piece of equipment came for station 2. That apparatus got to the point where thanks to our township mechanic, identified that it was going to cost over $10,000 to safety it. And the apparatus is 22 years old. So does it make sense for your fire chief to give approval to spend money on a piece of equipment that shouldn't be in service in the first place? So we decided to take it out of service, notify our mutual aid partners, and wait until the budget process so that we could come forward and say, this is where we're at, this is what we need to do, and here's a plan for you. So that you can look at the overall plan and say, does this make sense for our municipality to move forward, right? The second part about the radios. Our radios should really be mounted in our apparatus. Every fire apparatus has the ability to plug into shore power, just like a boat. And it powers everything that's plugged into that apparatus. The batteries should be sitting in bank chargers inside the apparatus so that you have 5 people or 5 firefighters get in a truck, there's 5 radios. And there's also some spare batteries. And then the batteries you rotate and you put through conditioners. The conditioners recondition your batteries to prolong the life of them. That is all equipment that the department does not have. So currently there are 7 radios sitting in each station, right? And they are sitting in just a regular charger. So the batteries, there are no spare batteries for those radios. There's no reconditioners for those batteries to go through on a monthly or quarterly basis, whatever the requirement is. So what happens is we only have enough radios to outfit 7 firefighters per station when we're trying to get to a number of 60 firefighters for the department and 20 firefighters per station. So I have not asked to go out and buy a whole bunch of radios we're not going to use. I'd like to purchase 3 more for each station this year. And then next year I'll come back to you with the part of the inventory process to say, we need to put away X amount of dollars each year, or we need to earmark this so that we can continue to evolve and change equipment as it becomes old. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
If you were to order a new truck, say this $600,000, whichever one it was, when do you expect you get, if you ordered that next week, when would you get delivery?
That's a great question, Mayor. So right now, the estimation on delivery, we're looking at somewhere around an estimated 600 to 1,800 days.
600 to 1,800 days.
Sorry, 600 to 800 days.
600 to 800.
So you're
Well,
looking
we're
at
talking
2 to
2
3 years,
2 to 3 years.
if not 4. So the work needs to be done yesterday to get ahead. My recommendation to council, and this will obviously work through Clerk Kemp, is that we work on putting together an RFP that identifies a services contract and a long-term purchasing contract for the municipality. Number one, to save money. Number two, so that your apparatus becomes familiar from one piece to the next. So that you're not buying from one company this time, the next company next time. So that things become familiar for the firefighters. Not to mention, it also becomes familiar for our township mechanic, because the one manufacturer has a way of doing things, a different manufacturer has a different way. Right now, the department has, I believe, 4 different types of fire apparatus, and you have to go to 4 different types of, or 4 different companies to get product to fix the apparatus. So it would be great if we were able to develop a relationship through a contract with a company to provide the apparatus, but also know that when our apparatus renders to a point where it needs repair that our municipal mechanic can't handle, so it's specific to the fire pump or something like that, that we have a company that's going to be there to stand behind us. We have a company that says, that's our name and we're coming to fix it. And the other recommendation in that RFP process that I'll speak to Pat about is no third-party purchasing, no third-party agreements. So when we award an RFP to whoever is going to be successful, that we ensure that that company is the one that's building the apparatus. We don't want to repeat what we've just been through. And it's important to me that we set the department up so that we have a 3 or 5 year agreement with the company that we're not going to be left holding the bag. We need to make sure that when we spend 650 or 750 or 800,000, whatever the dollars are, that that's not just a one-off sale agreement. And our current RFP process and what we've been going through, it kind of leaves us out there to award the contract to a company that we may not have a relationship with. We may not know how they work. Does that make sense? So these are only my recommendations. I'm not saying that the finished RFP will be that, because we have to follow what's legal. But these are the types of things that I think we need to work on.
Mike, your comment?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lobo. Dave, what, out of all your items there on your budget, what through the NFPA, what would bring you to compliance? If you had to do that today?
So with specifically to which part?
Well, with your fire, like just so your apparatus, your tanks, your radios.
So everything that I've identified to you, the radios, the community risk assessment, master fire plan, your procurement plan, and your extrication equipment is all NFPA stuff. The building upgrades is just your buildings and your assets with that.
So out of all that, like is it right now, it's you're in compliance, or is it just because it's old and it's wearing out?
So it's old and it's wearing out, number one. The answer to, are we in compliance? Going back to last council, we spoke about a master fire plan when I first came, and actually was, I believe, may have been a question in my interview. My recommendation after doing a 6-month assessment of the fire department was that we wait, because your master fire plan will show the laundry that you have on your clothesline. It will open up transparently where you should be, where you need to get to. But if it opens up where you should be and you're not there, then there's a lot more questions to answer. So my recommendation here is that these purchases and where my ask is to, I'm trying to achieve the standards that we're already supposed to be at. However, I do want to say to council that it's your decision. I'll do what you give me to work with. If you say to me that, you know, we only have this or that, then I'm going to have to go to work and say, okay, well, I'm going to have to see what I can do. And I have only come to you with no pie in the sky reaching. These are just where I feel that we need to be. Extrication equipment is supposed to be tested. So one thing that we'll move to in 2023 is test the equipment. We have not tested, nor can I find records to say it has been tested. So they go through all of that. Does it hold a PSI? Can it cut as it's supposed to? But I don't want to test the equipment and then come back to council and say, I'm sorry, but now I need the money. Because then we've identified it doesn't work. Right now, I can tell you it all works. But if we run it through the testing, because the testing is through different manufacturers, you have to then come up with a relationship with somebody that you know you're going to be able to trust. Because you could probably have 3 different companies, at least speaking from the private world. I could go to 3 different companies for 3 different tests and bring you 3 different results, all supporting purchasing the product. So we need to be careful. So I'm just trying to, you know, put us out there in a place where we have reliability.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at least
No.
we're showing some due diligence.
Yeah. No, I like what you put together. And honestly, I'm just wondering if we can afford it all. So I'm just trying to figure out what can be priority for this year. The buildings and stuff, like the building in Centerton, I would ask our CAO, should that not be Parks or Public Works responsibility to clean that up after they've made a mess of it?
Through you, your worship, what part make a mess?
Well, the Station 2, have you gone out to see it?
Yeah, it's, they're doing the transition from, I hadn't seen it in a while, I'll be honest, but, they're going through the transition of going from the old bays to the new bays. And I do know that Ministry of Labor were in there and they talked about a plan and cleaning it all up. So, I am going to go through it, but I do want to wait till, they did that transition.
So if I may comment, the dollars that I've put in the issue paper for Station 2 upgrades are to not necessarily clean up, but reconfigure that area. So the front offices need to be cleaned up. They need to be painted. The flooring needs to be addressed. The flooring in the training room upstairs, the tiles are coming off. Those need to be addressed. The flooring in the main part ultimately will need to be done. The stove that's in there, I believe, predates 1975. It's pretty old. But also to remove the big water tank that's in that annex building that's attached to the fire hall. We need to tear apart the front wall to drag that out. That's going to require some income. We need to build a wall inside there and put up fire doors so that the bunker gear room is separate from the others to be compliant. Those are the types of things that I'm suggesting the money gets used for. I think all in all, what we see today, you know, it's an older building, and yes, it certainly needs to be cleaned up. But if we going to spend money on cleaning up, we could probably spend money on updating that's going to clean it up anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Dave, I'm gonna have to, we gotta leave here in about 8 minutes. No, I don't. I'm going to a different spot. Thank you very much. It looks like it's gonna be an awful big expense over the next 3 years for fire. And I think, Nicole, you were saying in order to achieve this, you'd have to do a debenture. Is that, am I correct in that or not?
Yes, through you, Mayor. When I was working through the numbers, it would require a couple of things. It would require getting lending through a debenture in the first few years of initiating the plan. And what I have done is actually put those debentures over 10 years, knowing that if the equipment would actually last if we're saying replacement in 20, but that we're not carrying the debenture for a 20-year period, that we're getting back to good before that. So I did reach out to Infrastructure Ontario to find out what the current rates were. I also added a 3% inflation rate into Dave's numbers, just not knowing where we might be in the actual costs on some of these pieces of equipment. And one of the things that I did do is say that the cost per year for equipment going forward for vehicles, apparatus, would be 315,500. That's including the debenture payments. And then anything that we weren't paying into debentures would then go into a reserve for the next year to continue to put away for equipment in the future. So that was kind of the magic number to get us to a point where we can continue to replace this equipment when we need to without going to lending. So that would be the goal for the future.
And I have one other question. I see sometimes where municipalities have a separate levy for infrastructure. Is that something we could consider in this case? So that the residents know that we need to spend some money in fire, and we're gonna have a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year, whatever levy specifically for that to get us to where we need to go.
To you, Mayor, it is something that has been done, can be done. I know the county does have a separate levy for infrastructure. I think it's about 1% or so of their budget. Other smaller municipalities such as ours, I haven't seen them put that sort of thing in place. I guess it would depend on the whether the public would be open to that as well. That would be something council would have to consider, but I don't think it's an off the table option. I mean, it is out there. It would require us, I think we'd be looking at doing that. I don't know whether we would be looking at doing that in the current year. If we were going to do that, I'd want to do a little bit more research and what it's going to take to do that. One thing I did forget to mention that I want to make sure that I mention is that one of the things that I'm also had in this was over the next 5 years, slowly drawing some of the funds to get this capital in place is to draw from the working capital reserve and reduce that over 5 years until we get to the point where the fire department budget will actually support having those payments come directly out of the fire department budget. I don't think we're there yet. There is a large amount of funds still sitting in our working capital. Do I want to deplete that? No. But I think if we did it over a 5-year period and slowly reduce the amount we're drawing on that, that it's going to put our fire department in a better position and where we no longer have to rely on those reserves. The fire department would have their own reserve for their vehicles.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask council, first of all, Mike, just so you know, we're going to meet tomorrow from 9 till 12 to continue on with the budget. So you know, and then we're going into council right at 12:30. So my question to council is, are we had enough information through Dave, or would you like Dave to come back tomorrow for kickoff? That's up to.
I'm happy with the answers that were given and the budget, and we are going to discuss the issue papers at another time, whether we get to them tomorrow, but all the explanations that were given today was good for me.
Okay.
Through you, Mayor Logo, what is the levy cost on all the fire department's wants?
I believe we were at
2.5 or 4, I think it was.
Sorry, my laptop timed out on me. My two hands here. .74%, that's including all issue papers and the rest of the. budget.
And is that, or is any of that coming from out of reserves that would lower it, or that's the amount that would go?
So that's after considering amounts coming from reserves, so that's when you see Dave's issue papers where I've said that there's a certain portion coming from, that we're proposing coming from the levy, that is accounted for in that
Okay.
2.74.
Thank you.
Okay, I will take a motion to confirming bylaw, I guess is first.
No, what did you want to do with the fire budget?
Oh. Well, it's going to balance down the issue papers, I think. So I guess we'll take a motion that we accept the proposals and we'll look at the issue papers.
As presented, like we did with the other
Yeah,
ones,
so
and
in principle,
Yes,
in
yes.
principle, yes. I'll make that motion.
thank you, Greg. Seconder? Counselor Ainsworth? All in favor? Motion's carried.
And would you like a motion to refer the library budget back to the library board now that you have quorum?
Oh, yes, thank you. And we need to refer the library board changes back to the library board. Greg will take that back.
I'll make that motion that we refer back to the library, that they have to find the whatever the amount was, Pat, the 2,000, whatever it was, to refer back to the library, so for their budget.
Moved by Greg, seconded by,
Has to be Mike.
Yeah.
Or yourself. Can't be.
oh, yes, I'm sorry. Oh, Mike, thank you. All in favor? Motion's carried. Confirming bylaw. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. All in favor? Motion's carried. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilor Booth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. See you tomorrow, everybody.
See you, thanks.
Or this afternoon.